Hello everyone. This is Sana, and I'm hosting this event on Micro Frontend. So this is going to be an open discussion, and I welcome you all in this. This event is by Recro, and the whole SAR is like we are going to have an open discussion on this. We are having with us Ankush Dharkar, and he has been a part of Hotstar. He was into web development. He is having around 7 years of experience into web development, and he's working on JavaScript. And so I'll tell you more about Recro. So Recro is a developer-centric organization wherein we are trying to connect developers' aspiration to the right opportunity while working with the high-growth startups. So we are working with CureFit, Uran, Swiggy, Dunzo, Home Lane, and there are many other companies like with whom we are working with. So about the topic, since we will be starting with the presentation first, and then we'll be going ahead with the question answers, and we will be having a discussion in that. So I'll tell you about the platform first, and then we'll be going ahead like how we are going to do the open discussion in this. So here on the right hand side, we are using AirMeet, and on the right hand side, you can see the sessions, and then you can see a raise hand option wherein you can raise your hand and I can allow you to come on the platform and talk about this topic. So you can share your thoughts on the same. So as it is going to be a discussion, so you all are welcome to come here on platform and talk about that particular topic. And then you can see attendees, like you can see who all are seeing this event with you, and then a chat section wherein you can chat about the topic, anything apart from the questions, because we have this question section for specifically for the question, so that we don't miss out anything which you're asking. That's it about the platform. I would like to ask you, so when you're having any questions or when you want to share your thoughts about the topic, please raise your hand so that we can allow access to you, and then you can come here. I will be allowing 5 people at one time, so that we are not missing out anyone's thought. Okay, so I think without doing any further ado, we should get started. Thank you so much, guys. Ankush, on to you.
Sure. Thanks, Anna. Thanks for the lovely introduction. Hey, guys. Hope you are having a good weekend. Today is a Sunday. Weekend's almost about to end. So I'll introduce myself again very quickly when I get into the presentation. So sure, let's get right in. Let me share my screen. Okay, can you guys see my screen? Okay, perfect. So welcome. Today's session, as we all know, is about micro frontend. It's an open discussion. I am here to present an idea and to possibly expose you, for people who have never come across this term before or don't know much about it, to what micro frontend is all about and why we want to get into it. It's going to be a short presentation. It's basically going to expose a few ideas about how we can go about micro frontends and why we need to start thinking about them, especially when we are working in companies that have extremely big teams, or we need to migrate our app slowly over to new features. So a little bit about myself. So as you guys probably heard, my name is Ankush. You can find me almost everywhere as Ankush Dharkar. I am the technical co-founder of a company called UDEC, which is based out of Pasadena, Los Angeles in California. We are a social network which also helps you with productivity and collaborating your content and curating your content in one place so that you can access it together, like helping replace bookmarks, basically. Like Sana mentioned, I have been a part of Hotstar before. I was a web developer there in the subscriptions team. And I also do a lot of coaching and mentoring of people who want to get better in programming for no price, of course. It's a very fun group. We have a lot of exciting people there who work on different problems, open source algorithms, and also creating new interesting software. So the goal here is to meet interesting people who are almost your level and also learning, and also to create software that can help other people and basically have hobby projects which you can later on maybe show in your resumes. So before we start, I have a quick question for you. So which frameworks do you guys use at work? So which front-end frameworks basically you are using currently, which you think, at your company or or something you're like really good with. So I see a lot of React and Angular. Okay, there are some React and Angular. Okay, some more Angular. No Vue. Interesting. Okay, some Vue, few developers here. Awesome. So we have, I think we are pretty much leaning a lot towards Vue.js, sorry, React.js, not Vue.js. And we have some developers who are in Angular and Vue. Anybody who works here in Ember? Let's see how many people here know Ember or have worked with Ember before. So I see one. Cool. I would say that definitely give it a try. It exposes you to some interesting, strong conventions and interesting way of thinking about how you can use the conventions in that framework to other projects which you do. So I see React and Angular. So pretty much we can see that we have a mix of people here. I've been using Ember for almost 6 years of my web development career, and like after going to React, Angular, and Vue, like I have never come across something which is so stable and mature. So anyway, like you can see, we have a good mix of not a good mix. We have most people who are in React, but we have also developers who are doing Angular and Vue as well. So the reason why I mentioned this is important, as you'll see when we go along. So, as a developer, and more specifically as a front end developer, what are the kind of things that matter to us, right? So let's hear it from you guys. So, if you are a front end dev, what are some of the important things during development or during your work which extremely matter to you? So obviously, like productivity is one, right? You want to be an extremely productive guy. You want ease that a framework provides, fast shipping, very nice. Let's have some more state management, perfect. What else? Data binding. So we all have certain expectations from the tools which we use, which helps us in doing our job, right? So let's walk through a few of them. Design, right? As front-end developers, we do have to care about the design. We do care about our design tools, our Chrome Dev tools, our third-party extension that help us implement our designs perfectly. Somebody mentioned a UX, right? User experience. The kind of products which we are creating, how do the users get to experience them? That's an extremely important factor for us. So you can like go into performance and appearance and device compatibility, cross-browser support, like Tarun mentioned. Everything goes into like UX there. Other thing we care about is speed of development. Somebody said shipping features fast, right? That's very important to us because we want to make sure that when we are creating features, they go to our end users as soon as possible so we can get feedback, we can improve, we can help them if they're getting stuck somewhere. ROI, right? Return on investment. So when we choose a framework, we want that framework to survive for a long period of time. Like we don't want to choose a framework and then after 6 months or 10 months have some problems with it and then get into this weird spot where either we are stagnant with the choice we have made and we have to just continue and like monkey patch and put hacks to make the framework work with the new features, or we have to decide to move our code base over to a new feature and we are a little skeptical because it takes time and you can't go to your seniors or a product manager or engineering manager and say, yeah, for next 2 months I'm just going to migrate the app and basically have no features that go out. Nobody is going to be happy with that. They'll say, no, just use the old framework, continue with it. And you know what happens, right? The old code sticks around, legacy code sticks around, keeps growing until you get frustrated. The code has so much technical debt and people generally don't like using what exists. Developer experience, how happy we are developing on that particular platform or that particular tool set which we have. That definitely matters to us. Definitely, we like our shiny toys, but we also care about the stable toys which we have, things which are more predictable, things which have better communities, things which have more tutorials, more acceptance by other developers, right? What else? Maintainable architecture. This kind of goes with choosing a stable platform that survives over time. So we want to make sure that when we create something, it's created in a way that we can use it over time. We don't have to keep going back and changing our architecture. We can just extend from what we have. And also, let's say somewhere we can also have some kind of backward compatibility. So in case we had old features and old users, we want to make sure that we take them forward, right? Web was built to be inclusive. Web was built to like have to be available to everybody out there regarding of where they are or what they use. So this also is one thing which we deeply care about. And code portability, right? We write something which solves a particular problem once. We don't want to like rewrite the same problem again and again. We hopefully want to like reuse what we've already written. So I'm going to segue a little bit into microservices. I know this is not the topic what we wanted to talk about, but a couple of people here would have idea about what microservices are. Anybody wants to take a dig at what microservices means? I'll wait. So this has to do with backend, obviously. Backend, when you had a big backend team and you had just one single code base there, over time they could not sustain it. So they had to do something with it. Let's see how many people, if anybody is even typing. Independent modules, okay. Okay, I guess I'm not getting any more answers for now, which can work without any other intervention. Very, very good. That perfectly sums it up. So basically, it's an architectural style, right? Where you have a lot of loosely coupled services, and each service solves a particular problem on its own without needing help from other services. And they can communicate with each other, of course, but generally to deploy one service, you're not dependent on other services working. You can just maintain your microservice without having any kind of coupling with other services and other teams. So yep, Yash is right. Usually auth is used as cache microservice, right? So we have different services which we need in our daily lives. Like most of us front-end developers, when we call an API, many times we don't care about how it's implemented the backend, right? We just want it to work flawlessly, perfectly. It has to be always available, and we are done. But the backend teams have to do a lot of work to make sure that their services remain up, they scale, and they don't, crash under heavy loads, which we luckily don't have to care much about right now. So the reason I mentioned this is this concept kind of extended into front end and how we'll see that as a pattern. So microservices, like I said, are organized around business capabilities. They solve generally a business problem, which is something very specific, and they're owned by a small team who can take it from all the way from conception to implementation to deployment on the backend to be available for everybody to use. Now, the problem with these backend microservices is even if they deploy the microservice, it doesn't really become a release per se for the company or for the app specific for a user. The user doesn't care, right? If it's a front end app or a backend app, you log in, it should magically work. They don't care if it's going to space and transmitting electrons down to some server down in Mumbai or if it's coming from a local machine. If they sign in, they want to be signed in, and that's it. So if your front end is not ready and your backend is deployed, it doesn't matter because front end teams always have to catch up to what's happening in order to get the feature working. So the reason why I had to look into micro front ends, there were like two of them. One was the fact that I wanted people to work on multiple different frameworks and libraries at the same time, but under the same code base. And the second was something which I've noticed in my work life over and over. So let's see the scenario and let's see how many of you can kind of relate to this. So you are in front end team. So we'll just use the emojis, right? If you think this applies to you, just put the thumbs up in the screen and I'll know, okay, people are there who this applies to. So I can see a couple of thumbs ups. Okay, cool. So you're in front end team, of course. There is some other non-technical team who wants to do something with a particular business feature, right? They want to launch discounts for the food available from a particular restaurant, or they want to give you some kind of coupons for use between, let's say, 1 mile between or Uber or whatever it is. Like they come up with some campaign they want to implement, and they say, okay, we want to do this in 2 weeks. Can we do it? This will increase the business revenue. This will help us get more users. Whatever the end goal is. And many times we look into the requirements and we have a discussion and we say, yes, we can do this. We commit. We say, yes, 2 weeks, definitely. Like we can deploy it by end of this week. We'll test it. We'll put it behind a feature flag. It will be ready. So, cool. And then the other teams now in a big company or even even in any company, there is always some kind of dependency, right? Where you have multiple non-tech teams relying on that feature to go live. So there's always pressure on the engineering team, release it, release it, release it. And you tell them a date and you say, okay, this will go out on 21st of June. Once you give that date, you will be held to it, because if you don't, you will have to answer to team marketing, team sales, teams finance, some CTO, some CFO. Like all of a sudden, it becomes a big game where you have to get everybody in sync on why you're not going to release. So if you commit to a date, you have to make sure it goes out, and you are responsible for it to go out, indirectly or directly, right? And other reason for this is the other teams. Uh, yes, stop making me laugh. Okay, so the other teams, they're dependent on you, right? Because they have the kind of work they do. they cannot really be loosey-goosey about the deadlines. So if they're sending out email marketing campaigns, if they're sending out phone messages to the users, if they are creating posters, if they're creating some kind of an event where maybe people will come and scan a QR code in a mall somewhere. So they have this dependency where the feature definitely has to be ready, because once they set a date and they start promoting it, there's no going back. And then we say, okay, all our tests are passing, everything seems to be working. We have a feature flag, which we will turn on the correct date. Everything is ready to go, right? Does this happen when we say we are finished before time, we have everything in place? Definitely this is going. I mean, of course, there are things which goes wrong, but many times you will also get things right, right? You've done your part, and things are definitely going to be ready for this event. And then the feature is live on your in the release and in your prod, and you can actually start using it. And maybe it's been half an hour since it's released, maybe it's been 24 hours since it's released, whatever, but something happens, right? Something breaks somewhere for sure. Some other team has a critical bug in production, and because you don't have time and because you don't know where the fault is coming from, for whatever reason, the first reaction of the platform team will be roll back, go to the stable version. We don't care what gets lost. It becomes difficult convincing them to, like, hey, because every team says my code is correct. So when you know something's going wrong, when you're losing revenue every second, you don't get to like reason about it too much. The best course of action is like control the fire, roll back. And once the code rolls back, your changes goes with it, right? You like now you have to explain to so many people why that feature is not live, even when you did all the work correctly. And this puts everybody in an awkward spot. And sometimes there are name games that are played, and sometimes people are not happy, and sometimes even money is lost in promoting whatever feature was supposed to work, right? So we have to at least understand what micro frontends can do to help reduce this problem for us. So right now we had a little poll, and we had people who were, Angular devs, React devs, Ember, one or two Ember devs, and Vue.js developers. But the question is, why is it always a question of framework versus framework? Why can it not be just all inclusive and we can all just work together, right? Each one of us brings the specialty which we have in that particular framework. We build our components properly, that team builds it properly, and we should be able to just integrate all the work together to make stable experiences. And that's what's being explored heavily in as the next big solution for removing those kinds of problems. So let's say that you had an app, right, all made in Vue.js. It has different parts. It might have some kind of a recommendation section. It might have some kind of chat section, some kind of selection, sidebar, lots of different things. So if you implement micro frontends correctly, what you can do is you can remove important pieces with other frameworks and still get the entire platform to work. And this is the idea behind getting micro frontends. It's still completely not there. We are still not 100% in this direction. We are still trying to, everybody's trying to put their conventions together. Uh, Copyright claim isn't coming. I don't think so. These are all open source logos. So anyway, so right, the idea is we should be able to have a component, replace it with a new framework if needed, without impacting the overall performance of the app. And this is what we're going to explore in our micro frontend history. So let's see how the apps were built in the past. So we initially had monolithic full stack apps, and by the way, there is nothing wrong with monolithic full stack apps if it solves your business problem perfectly. Maybe you are strapped for cash and you can't hire as many developers, or maybe what you've built is pretty stable and serves a niche market and everybody's happy there. Absolutely no reason to reinvent the wheel there just because you can. I would still say always focus on the business proposition you are delivering to your users rather than what tech you are using. So then we had this front end back end separation. Then, as I said, we moved to microservices. And then slowly we started having these frameworks and these libraries which started emphasizing on components. So we can reuse the code and we can work together with other people and we can kind of divide our work, right? And then the next one, the incremental step would be getting into micro frontends. So we have our full app, the full stack app. We broke it down into a front end and a back end separation, right? We had our work defined. And then we just moved everything to an API gateway and we created a little microservices there. And then we had our components. So React, Angular, Ember, all of them Vue, all of them have this concept of components now. The next progression which we are trying to do is trying to have some kind of a composer or a shell app that has these micro front-end apps and it puts them all together in a single experience. And the benefit of doing that is one team or one feature team can now own the whole stack from backend to front end if we get this to the perfect or to a good enough standpoint. Which means if this happens, the team can work together, the backend developers, the front end developers, the designers, the UX engineers, the product managers, the scrum masters, everybody will come together and be able to give definitive deadlines and releases from of their app all the way from their backend APIs to delivering it on the front end. And this is where we want to head as a solution. By the way, remember, like micro front end is not really the solution for everything. It might be a solution somewhere. And the whole purpose of the discussion is to move towards that. So what are the problems we solve when this happens? So this means if we have an old architecture, we can start introducing new frameworks slowly into the picture and over time replace it one by one instead of trying to do a gigantic revamp of the entire app. Each business team can pick their own tech stack. So based on what the availability and of resources or the kind of engineers they want, they can decide which direction they want to go to. The teams can independently deploy the backend and front end, so they know when their code is going out and what happens to the code once it's out. And this helps you scale the UI development, which lags a little behind because of the constraints we spoke about before. So how can we split our front-end app? One is obviously based on functionality. So if you have, let's say, a chat section that can go in a separate micro front-end, if you have your list reading section or maybe a recommendation section, you can just put that into a different micro front-end. The other is page. And somebody asked a question about having two frameworks, increasing bundle size. This page helps with that because when you start having micro frontend which are just page based, you only load the framework responsible for that page into that and cache it. So only pages which use that framework will be able to access it. So this helps you with certain separation. And by section, so you can decide like which section of the app and when does it show. So for example, things that the user is not seeing, those apps don't even have to be bootstrapped or booted into your main shell app until it's ready. So you can divide when the app is ready, it shows as a section app. So how can we implement it? There are many ways. I came across these four. One was external app bootstrapping. So bootstrapping was creating a shell app, getting the partner app into the shell app as a child app, basically. Iframes we're all familiar with. It's by default there in our HTML standards. A single SPA library was something which gave you a way of importing other apps into your main app. And then front-end framework. So they basically tell you how you can go about using different frameworks and creating. It's a full framework around how you build micro front-ends. So what is the benefit of external app? Your code, your front-end code. So now we're talking just about the front-end side, right? So when I say code, we mean our front-end code. So our front-end code lives on different servers. So we can deploy them independently, of course. We can use the window object to communicate between multiple front-end apps because micro front-end apps. Because sometimes we have, like for example, talking about authentication, right? Once you have a micro front-end app, there are going to be features which you want to give only to people who are logged in. And maybe your micro front-end is not responsible for authentication. So in that case, you can use the DOM APIs to get all the details you need, or you can like attach just the important info on the window object. Or you can create like an event bus system where micro frontends can subscribe to certain events. And when that event is fired from other micro frontends, you know something has happened, you can do and respond accordingly. So example of that can be a list which is generated for all your emails and maybe like the chat corresponding or notes corresponding to it. So when somebody clicks a particular email, you trigger an event saying, I want to see this email ID 123. And based on that, the chat section shows up or note section shows up. The problem with Event Bus, though, is it's difficult to figure out which micro front-end app it's coming from. And so you can, of course, like in your data message, describe who sent the message. But then again, now you're going back to standards where you're dependent on defining contracts between different teams of how things are going to move forward. And we want to stay away from that, right? That's the whole idea. We wanted to have this clear separation. Iframes, again, code lives on different servers, independent deployments, and we have to use post message to talk with iframes. We'll get into an example of implementation of an iframe later on. By the way, there's no major code here. I think I removed all the code just to focus on the core concepts. A single SPA library is another a library that helps you create proper front-end apps. So it gives you the shell app, and it tells you how you can boot React and different versions of Angular and Vue into this single SPA library framework. So once you have this set up, it's very, and they give you a lot of official support for a lot of frameworks as well. So you can just have your existing app, make a very few changes on just the main index file of how you're exporting the app, and this can it'll boot the app into your shell and render it for you. So generally speaking, in single SPA library, you have three major functions. So you have the bootstrap, you have the mount, and you have the unmount. So Bootstrap basically says how to initialize whatever child app you're going to use. So it gets that environment ready. So if you're using Angular and you've bootstrapped the Angular app, it sets up the Angular environment and it's ready to put it into your main app. Mounting, of course, does the work necessary for mounting the Angular app into this shell app. And unmount is what happens when the Angular app is unmounted. So kind of like your lifecycle methods, right? So there are a lot of benefits of using this library. So one is, of course, multiple frameworks on the same page, like we mentioned before, what we want to achieve. Using new framework on old code base. So for example, you can run multiple version of Angular. The different teams can choose which version of Angular they want to stick with, because oftentimes you want to move to a new framework because you've done your work and you want to use the new feature, but there's another team A who has not and who's still working with old features and they cannot afford to migrate, right? And that creates this kind of a problem where you are stuck because the other front-end teams are still stuck with the old frameworks. Lazy loading is possible, so you can decide at what point you want to actually load or boot that app into your main shell app. Code lives on different servers, independent deployments, and we can have multiple communication ways. So window object, of course, event bus like we spoke before, and we can use shared state like Redux or what is that, a Mobi.js, and whatever exists that gives you that global state. So you can use the shared state. My like from what I understood and what I read, it's generally a good idea not to share or to share as little as possible, because the little you share, the more independent you stay, and you don't depend on other teams pushing their code or making their changes for your app to take effect. If you want to use a framework, there is already a framework called Frint Framework. This defines a lot of conventions of how you should go about. So that's basically that is what a framework does, right? A framework decides the basic structure or basic coding conventions you're going to use to create something. So it gives you its own CLI and routing, state management. And just the good thing about this framework, it supports server-side rendering. So when you use multiple different frameworks, server-side rendering becomes a challenge because server-side rendering is already hard with so many individual frameworks. And when you put this on top of it and you want to like boot so many apps into your main app, things will become more challenging. So you can do React programming. And one good thing about Frint is also it works with React Native. So you can actually make mobile apps out of this Frint framework and use multiple apps into this particular framework. So when I spoke about the shell app and when I spoke about the different levels at which you build your app, there are basically three composition stages. So composition is when you have different child apps and you want to put them together in the main shell app or the parent app, right? So you can do it at build time. So when you when you push your code, you can create a build which has the new code in place. Then you have the server-side rendering. So when the user requests it, that at that time the app is put together in the shell app and you are served the page which you have to see. And runtime is when you download the shell app and the shell app in turn initializes the different children app. Build time apps are generally not preferred because when it comes to build time, your bundle size increases a lot because you have to put all the apps together. And also now you have to start sharing NPM packages with other teams and telling them what your version is, and you have to wait for the release to go out because build will only go out when there's a release. So it tends to create more complications. People have started moving only towards runtime so that they have full dynamic flexibility over their solution. When it comes to cons, obviously, like Micro Frontend has some cons. As you start managing all these different things, you do have more code and dependencies that grows. Because you have to manage how your app is going to load and who's going to take care of bugs when the main shell app has problems. Bigger bundles, because if you are trying to import a lot of different kinds of child apps, your bundle size will grow. The good thing is a lot of libraries, they let you lazy load. So this concern decreases quite a bit. Performance, obviously, when you have multiple frameworks running in the same environment or the same page, your performance will take a hit for sure. And communication can be lost. So this is actually a non-technical aspect of micro frontends, which is when your team starts focusing on their individual requirements, you can get out of touch with other teams. So your branding, your designs, your the things you have to share across companies, they can start to differ, and you can have code duplication where multiple teams have solved the same problem. So because people are independent and they don't need to talk to each other now, they start implementing their own solutions. So you have to be careful there. Like you can have problems where your CSS, they start hitting the same name. Everybody call this pink module as pink hyphen module. So now suddenly like CSS is breaking for both the apps for some reason. So there are solutions for that as well. You can use a pre-processor or a post-processor and change the namespace of your CSS. But these things have to be considered. So a design system has to be in place, and there has to be somebody who oversees and keeps the total overall design of the multiple apps similar. So a good idea is creating a good design system where people can copy paste code from and use it in their individual environments, so that one team maintains that and the other teams can just consume it, so they never go out of sync and they don't have to repeat that extra work of writing those very small components and color schemes, etc. So who is using micro frontends, right? Google has some implementations of it. So for example, if you go to your Gmail app, the Hangouts or the Meet section, I don't know what they call it nowadays. It, if you inspect that element, you'll see that it's within an iframe. So that's handled by a different team. So they use that iframe method of handling that. Microsoft, right? So when you go to your Outlook email and you hover over somebody's name and that pop-up appears, which shows the details about that person, that's generally a React app which is handled by a team of more than 60 people. Facebook, like comment, all the different things are all different teams managing it and putting it in the front end dynamically. Spotify implements a lot of iframes in their apps to help deliver their content. So a lot of big companies are already using these patterns, and there are like a bunch more who are. I read somebody who mentioned that they were also using already single spine in their production. So companies are definitely using it. So it's not an unknown pattern to use. It definitely solves a very important use case, but you have to be careful if it solves the use case you are looking for. So conclusion, right? Don't use this for very simple apps. If your team size is not as big, if your complexity is not as big, if your business use cases does not justify it, don't use it because it's fun. You will just create more problems for yourself. Only use it when having this kind of a paradigm makes your life easier and does not complicate your problems. It's not going to magically solve your problems for you. You have to know when there are long-term benefits of using this kind of an architecture. If you use a micro front-end based solution, you don't have to make sure that you use every single framework, because you have to at the end work with what your teams know and what their strengths are. So just because it's fun to use Vue.js, don't do that. Stick with what your strengths are and why you started using that micro front-end solution in the first place. And like I said, unify your standards for UX and branding. So make sure that in all this separation, you don't lose sight of what your app finally needs to look and feel like. Because if a user is using it, they don't care if it's an Angular 2 or an Angular 4 or a React app. They want the app to be consistent. Because if things are not consistent, the trust building breaks for that company. And also, you present a very wrong image of your company, right? You can't even keep your basic elements standardized. So will you be able to, for example, keep their money safe or keep their subscription safe, or maybe keep the data safe or whatever? So trust is important. So this slide will be available. So these are some of the references which I used for gathering my general information. If somebody wants to take a screenshot, you can, but I don't think it's a good idea because you won't be able to click it. So going 3, 2, 1. And let's see. So yeah, that's pretty much from my side. Now we'll start the discussion pretty soon after this. You can find me as Ankush Dharkar, like I said, almost anywhere. We'll be happy to connect and talk about whatever your doubts, questions, ideas, suggestions would be. And yeah, that is all for now. And now we'll jump into our discussions and questions.
Okay, I think some people are asking questions in the chat section also. Akansha, if you can put your question in question section.
All right, let's see. So Yash says Bootstrap is equivalent to initialize, right? But here initialize means initializing the framework and not a component. Correct, Yash. So this means initializing the entire framework and getting it ready to be mounted. This is not a component. So the problem with components is the component finally go into the same framework with the same dependency, right? They're part of a singular framework. And we don't obviously want that for our solution because that means you either we end up using React components or Vue component, or not just React components, React 16.8 components. You can't use, sorry, if you're on 15.4, you can't use 16.8. So there you get stuck, and we don't want that. So we want to initialize the framework, not the component, and the particular version of that framework. And then mounting is when that, so when you do, when you're using React, there's always a react.render and you say which root element is it supposed to mount into. So that is where we mount our entire React app in the end. And as you know that we can even use React app without making the whole app a React app, right? So we are mounting that particular framework. So Akanksha says, I'm curious how we maintain an app level routing. So in those library and framework examples I showed, so single spa and Frint.js, they have conditions that match. So one, I showed you what happens when you're mounting a framework, but when you set up, and I skipped that part because we can always, once you get exposed to these concepts, we can go and read about more on them and they have enough documentation. But the framework, they have certain conditions. So you can do things like saying a regex. If the path matches a particular regex, load this Angular app, which is gone through an async import somewhere, or based on if a particular view is shown, you can use a third-party library which tracks if your current section is observable or not, and whether you're supposed to mount or not. So basically, it gives you a Boolean value which can decide when to import and mount a particular component. Is there any thumb rule to choose micro frontends or monorepo? If let's say that your business is struggling because your work is getting too much dependent on other teams, and because of which you cannot have predictability of business, because at the end of the day, tech is meaningless, right? If it doesn't solve a problem. And if you're, and when I say problem, I don't mean a tech problem, I mean a real user facing problem. And if that is happening too much, then maybe it's time you have to look into micro frontend as a solution, so that you separate that dependency with the other front end teams, and you're able to push out your section of features faster. Because let's say that there are three features, two are good to haves, and one is need to have. And good to haves are causing the need to have to fail too often. And because that you're losing users, not enough users are showing up on your platform. There's not enough conversion. So maybe you need to prioritize the need to have to be able to release without good to haves. And in doing so, I mean, of course, like a lot of people, they do mention good, very, very valid points that maybe it's a problem with communication in the team. Maybe it's a problem with how their deployment is set up. I completely agree with that. But at the end, there is so much legacy code and there are so many moving parts, there's so many teams. Somewhere we have to start looking into if it's worth solving the entire organization problem or it's worth solving the business problem. What's the first website you shared in the slide? It's called Real Dev Squad. It's currently, I think, nothing is there. But if you ping me separately, I'll let you. I'll give you the access to Discord there, or maybe in Discord, hit me up. In the sense that which framework would maintain that and how. The library, like the single spa library which I showed, or Frint.js would maintain that. What about nested routes like Ember Engine? So Ember Engine is kind of an example of micro frontends, right? You have a very specific business problem held in a different code in a different repo, and it just gets imported and booted into your main app. So that's one reason why I love Ember so much. When these front end problems start becoming apparent, the Ember team solves them preemptively without creating too much fuss about them. So Ember Engine was a solution for this for about three years already, and they've made it really robust over time. Is there any reference code that we can look into? Yeah, definitely. So if you go to single spa, if you go to Frint.js, there's a lot of code there which you can get into. And over the next few weeks, I'm also going to be playing a lot more with both of them. So maybe we can form a small group and talk about it and share our findings. These two were like actual problems for me where I had to start looking into microfrontends. A difference between frameworks being used here. Mm, what about maintainability? So as I said, it becomes maintainable once you have the shell app pretty robust and stable. The maintainability becomes easier because now you have to worry about the child app, right? And if child app is improving and official support is not there, you can either open. It's an open source solution, so you can create your own drivers, or you can wait for them to release an official a solution for it. But generally speaking, the maintainability lies with the independent teams, and that is the beauty which we were shooting for. And you're right, that also becomes a problem because now you cannot use the knowledge and skills of other teams. So, like I said, there's a trade-off. You have to see if it's a good solution for you.
Okay.
What about common state management? Yeah,
Ankush, we are having some raise hand, so if I can allow
sure,
them.
sure. Let's do it. Let's do it.
So there is Yash Ahuja, so I'm just sending the mic to him. Hi Yash.
Let's bring
Hi.
let's bring Nikhil and Jelani also.
Yeah, I'm just handing them the mic. Okay. So,
Hi, Jelani.
Jelani. Okay, I think there's some problem happening.
Hmm.
Hi Risha.
Hello.
Hi, Shab. How
Hi.
are you?
Hi, Sana. Hi, Ankush. So I'm basically a tech lead of a front-end team at a startup, and our team has grown from 2 people to 23 front-end developers. So
Mm-hmm.
we are looking out to break this application down into a micro-frontend architecture. So we did a couple of POCs, like you mentioned, with a single SPA. So we came down to using web components and an app shell kind of architecture, where you have an app shell and all other apps communicate, like built into it. All right. So my major issue right now is, let's say I have created a rule where saying all apps have to be React, all child apps have to be a React 16.8, a common version.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
now what happens is all these bundles bundle React dependencies as well. So is there a way I can share my React library from the shell to its child app so that the bundles are thinner for the child apps?
Right. So actually, Webpack helps, and I think Webpack 5 has a thing called module federation. So it's going to automatically start creating these common repos for you, and you can always cache them, right? So there,
Okay.
I did see some code. I'll try to find it for you, but I've definitely seen this case where multiple children app are using the same bundle, like you spoke, right? You're talking about a common bundle being used between multiple uh,
Yeah, multiple apps.
child React apps. Yeah,
Common
that solution is
dependencies.
there. And if I am
Okay.
correct, it's there for single SPA applications. So I'll try to find that link for you. But that's
Okay.
possible. And even if you don't have a solution right out of the framework, you can always nothing stops you from creating your own utility on top of shell apps, right? So you can have a shell app where you are always maybe you can do a prefetch or some kind of an optimization based on a small JavaScript utility which you can embed directly into the shell app. So it automatically loads that JavaScript utility for the other React apps to use. So those solutions
Okay.
can also be explored. You don't have to rely on official solutions only. You can create your own custom solutions, especially if you know your constraints. Like in this case, you are saying everything is going to be a React app. So if it's everything's
Yeah.
going to be React app, you can start injecting some common React library into your shell apps, for example.
Okay. Well, thanks, Ankush.
But
That was
I've seen that solution somewhere. I'll try to find it.
okay. If you do, please share the link with me. Thanks.
Sure.
Sure. So
Okay.
I'm just handing the mic to Jelani. Hey Jelani.
Hey, hi guys.
Hi.
First of all, thanks Anna for hosting this session, and thanks Ankush for sharing the knowledge, whatever that you've worked on, experimented on, and stuff. So
Pleasure.
I kind of wanted to go on the similar lines, basically. So I am a tech lead. I'm handling front end and full stack, basically whatever web products that we have at Zola Stage. We have a kind of a solution which is running in place. So I thought I'd just explain or kind of talk about what we did so that
Awesome.
it's useful for people who are out there, right? So first thing which I wanted to say is like it's a very good observation that by observation and a kind of a collective collection, the knowledge collection by Ankush that why do we need to know it, what is it, etc., etc. So all those things are covered in the slides. So going back to the story of why we did it, it's basically very similar to Rishabh's problem. So we had a monolith app, which is basically our internal CRM, ERP, etc., the whole thing clubbed together. We wanted to break it as our backend was moving to microservices. It made sense to kind of build these also into microfrontends, right? So we did not go for single SP or any of the frameworks. Since I have a background of both front end and full stack, so I kind of had a full stack solution, kind of if you think about it. So what we did is we use React, Vue, and Svelte right? So it is in production, but Vue is kind of an experimentation process. So if you take any JavaScript library, right, take React, Svelte, Vue, Elm. So all of these things have a common something similar, which is they all build and then inject their HTML and the interactivity into a particular DOM element that you ask it to, right? That's what you have in your main.js or index.js. You have your app component, you inject that app component into some other thing, right? So what we did was we were able to create a Express app powered by Mongo. The backend is Mongo, where based on the route or basically the entry out of the app, we'll know that okay, these are the app. The bundles for these applications are in this S3 bucket, right? So whatever I build for, let's take a React application, right? So you build a main.js and a main.css, right, with some hash, etc. So what I do is during the build process of that particular application, I push it to S3. I don't run it as a separate application or any server or anything. It just goes in S3 and sits there. But one change of the app to the S3 path so that the assets and whatever if I lazy load the particular component, or if I do async, if I do lazy, whatever that I do, so that I can get the next set of components correctly. So I use public path there of the S3 bucket. The second one is the DOM slot, right? This is basically div ID, some ID, right? So let's say we have two apps called one called forms, one called results, right? So this application will have this IDS forms. It won't be pushing it to app. It will be pushing it to forms. There'll be another application which will be pushing it to results, right? So when I render this application using Express and handlebars, you can use Jade or any of the templating engines. When you render, you know that okay, for this application, I have to fetch files from this S3 bucket, and I have to render these two DOM slots. So my composing work is almost done here. So I have a composer which server rendered a particular div and a couple of script tags and a couple of JS tags, CSS links. So when the application boots up, so they'll all happen independently. They don't even have to wait for each other. Right. So
Nice.
this kind of go and fetch those particular application bundles. We'll boot it up. Browser will execute React. If it's React, it will execute and it'll see that oh, okay, I have to inject this into my div called forms. It will find that div called forms. It will inject the content there. And same goes for results. If you have the results in a split page app, the results will be loaded separately. Okay, so this is something we have kind of done. And for interconnectivity, we are using even bus. The same thing. So we have a PubSub model which is running inside the browser. We've not kind of been tested fully. So I don't know the performance impact of using a single layer bus there. Basically, if you kind of think about it, bus is nothing but PubSub, right? You're kind of simulating a small MQ level kind of stuff inside the browser itself. So that is one thing that we're doing. So yeah, like on the same page composer, we are using header. Our header is built on Svelte. The application header, which is common across all applications, it's built on Svelte. The body content, it keeps changing. So yeah, it can be React or it can be Vue. And the sidebar and everything is part of the composing layer. But they talk to the header, which is built in Svelte using event-based. So if you want to open close, share data, and most of the data, if you want to share, you have local storage, session storage, etc. We did not see any
Right.
necessity for sharing storage between applications, which, as you said, kind of mangles them up, right? You don't want to do that. If that is really necessary,
Yeah.
you put it in a common place, which could be your object, or it could be your global object, or it could be your local storage or anything. So this is something that we did. What do you think? Like, I just wanted to get feedback and then see how we can build it up and stuff.
So the initial you said the shell app was made in Svelte, right?
No, the shell app is a full stack solution which is built on Express and the handlebars. It doesn't have any JavaScript library there. It's Express. This is a server-side rendered application, right? So we use Express
Hmm.
for as a web server and handlebars for rendering content. It just renders shell.
So all the individual apps which are there, right? Sometimes they call the same APIs as well. For example, auth, right? If you're
Right.
not using cookies, auth is a very weak example because auth you can get from cookie directly,
We
but
use
maybe user profile.
we kind of built that also in house. We used AWS Amplify and we built our own SSO implementation. So they all share the
Okay,
same
cool.
object across whichever application that looks.
Very nice. Because somebody asked about GraphQL. So GraphQL actually helps here because you can cache a lot of results from the API.
Mm-hmm.
And there is like a lot of concepts like what is it called? Schema slicing or sharing, something like that, right?
Yeah,
Where you
there
can
also
also
federation helps there as well. Right? So
Right. So there, even if multiple modules are asking for the same data from the API, you can cache semantic stitching. Exactly. Thank you. I was forgetting that term. So there you can make sure that you don't overload your backend for data as well,
Right.
and that like performance-wise that helps.
Mm-hmm.
So overall, I think so. See, any micro front-end solution where you can replace components easily is a good solution, in my opinion, if you ask me, because that's the whole purpose of you wanting to use it to
Right.
replace, experiment, move fast, get feedback, move back to something else.
Right.
And if you're putting constraints like using everything as React based, that's also okay because at least now your vertical teams still have control over what they
Mm.
are pushing out,
Right.
right? But how easy is it to move from React to, let's say, Vue.js in one of your projects?
Right. It's pretty simple because the reason why I said Svelte, React, Vue, and Elm is because Angular is kind of a framework in itself. It's not a library, right? So these libraries they have something in common, which is pushing the content. The only the assumption or the only requirement that I want for a framework to be integratable into my our front end architecture is that it should push content. It should build and push content into a div slot in a DOM,
Hmm.
be able to control where the slot, where the content is being pushed. So because if you take Angular, Angular kind of has its own entire HTML, it has its own server, right, even during dev and everything. So I'm not worked on the latest version of Angular much, so I do not, it be kind of,
Got it. And second thing you said, the data loads from an S3 bucket, right?
so the only the bundles load from S3 bucket, yes, the JS and CSS file.
So why not push them over a CDN like Fastly or Akamai and invalidate them when new bundles are uploaded?
Yeah, yes, that is kind of when I have an S3, the next step is kind of for me to have a CloudFront URL in front and then pass
CloudFront,
it
right?
into the bucket, right? So that would kind of allow me to even do ESI. So even kind of Amazon is kind of very much exploring with for their 5G architecture. They are kind of trying to get the content in S3 to our ISA, so internet ISPs, right? So that is something that's coming up. It's a very good suggestion. I'm not saying it's no, but we've not got to that point yet. So I was like, okay, it was kind of more of an experimental solution which went live, kind
Hmm.
of. Like,
Nice.
see if it works or not, works or not. And at one point, I was like, oh shit, it works. Oh, pardon me, language. But I was
And
like,
and and regarding feature flags, do you have complete control over that as well?
so all of these things are built on individual applications, right? So if I kind of give a simple example, so the latest application that we built was since we are in co-living based, our property management is kind of one particular area that we had to implement. So when somebody want to add a property to the listing, they'll have to add something, do something, not do something, etc. Right? So the property and properties configuration is one thing, and then after the configuration, your slots, your customers who stay there, the residents who stay there, they are a particular different thing. So whatever feature flags and whatever other items that we use, they're all controlled by the individual application. Since we are loading those applications in screen, so the development itself is kind of compartmentalized. So they wouldn't know. So if I want something in this particular application, okay, I just have to go to this repo and make this change. So I don't have to touch any of the other items. So
Nice.
there could be a problem in future, which I'm kind of foreseeing. Which is basically when I want to share components. Let's say that
Right.
I write a charting library or something, which kind of want to do some data visualization. At that point, I'll have a particular reporting page, which will be a separate application. But there will be a point where one of the business guys is going to come and say that I want a button in a property page. When I click on it, I want that report to be shown here. So that's going to
So
happen.
there's a solution. There's a solution for that as well. What you do is you come, like I said, create like a branding or a UX team or a shared components team who creates these things for you and maintains that. When
Right.
you import it into your project, you write wrapper components using web
Right.
components or your library components over it, and
Got it.
you basically extend what already exists. So
Got
you
it.
don't have to do the CSS, you don't have to do the logic, you just add that extra button like you mentioned. Or
Right.
maybe when you hover, you want some layouts, etc.
Yeah.
But one team has to be responsible for that. The problem is it again creates a dependency where now the shared component team has to push that component out. In
Right.
that, what you can do is you can create that component in your as an exportable component. Use it till the time it's not accepted by the shared team, and in the
Right.
meantime, submit a PR for the shared team as to what this generic component looks like. And advisable to keep it not platform agnostic, framework agnostic as much as possible, so other
Right.
frameworks can use them as well.
Got it, got it. So I kind of explored. I had two options there. One is if I didn't want, I don't have a separate components team who kind of does it. So everybody does everything, right? So in that lines, I explored Bit. bit.dev, which lets us write components, export it to them. They kind of act as a component repository. That is one. Second
So,
one
so
is
you can create an in-house team, right? You can just select like maybe one or two developers from each
right,
team and say you are now shared component mafia or something, and they'll be responsible for that.
right. So yeah, there are two other things. One is web components as usual. So that is one thing that we are exploring, and the other stuff that is currently under experiment is federation. Federation is something that seems really really interesting, especially for solving the design system problems. You don't have to
Right.
have things hosted somewhere, etc., etc. You can build as you go, but there is a problem there as well. Probably 6 months, 1 year later, it could become a spider web with when you have a host application on a consumer application that could easily become a spider web 6 months down the line. But let's say it's a kind of a thing in progress. We'll see how even the Webpack community comes up with a solution for that. So yeah, thanks for for giving the chance to share this, and I hope it kind of helps people. Thanks,
My
Ankush.
pleasure.
Thanks, Sana. Yeah.
Thanks. Okay. So
So
I'll now.
let me take one or two questions as well in the meantime when we are accepting Nikhil.
Okay.
So
And
how
guys,
can we?
just a second. Guys, I have shared a feedback link, so it would be great if you can take it. So it will help us to come back with, I would say, better events for you and with better topics. You can even suggest your topics, and if any speaker you find that person should come here and talk about that particular topic, even you can suggest that. So it would be great if you can take it. I've already shared the link. That is the last link which I've shared. Please take it. It would be a really great help. Okay, now Ankush, you can answer the question.
Can I hijack it for the session for like one minute?
Yeah,
I'm following Sana. So basically, I'm also kind of trying to get this particular architecture to people.
yeah.
So
Okay,
we could connect separately on the same thing. I would kind of
sure. Just ping me your contact details in a direct message, and I'll reach you out.
yeah. Thank you.
And also, Jelani, we have a Discord channel. So
Yeah,
whenever you are ready, we can
Right.
just do a ad hoc live session there as well, and you can
Right.
go
yeah.
over this and you can talk.
Yeah. So
Uh, I have shared a Discord link also in the chat section.
yeah.
Uh, you guys can join us there. We usually share some blogs and all. Even Ankush is also having a separate channel. I will share that Discord link in my Discord, so you can join us there.
Discord
Okay.
section, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
So you can join us there. Okay, Ankush, you start, and I have segregated the question, like I've sorted in the, I would say, time manner. So I'll just select
Upvotes.
whatever you're answering. So
All
I'll
right.
just do that. Fine. Thank
Okay.
you.
How can How can we handle authentication with micro front end? Storing in Windows is not a good idea for security. So authentication is generally stored in cookies or JWTs anyway, right? They're all front end based solutions, and it's not where you store it; it's what you store that creates the security issue. So micro front ends treated the same way. You can store it as a cookie or as a token, and you can use it from there. Like I mentioned, you can use the DOM APIs to access in any kind of data which you need from even from local storage if you had to. So I hope that answers your question, Sonak. What about common state management? It depends on what kind of framework or library or own solution you use. So I mentioned that you could use local storage, you could use DOM APIs, you could use Redux, you could use Mobi.js, whatever, like whatever already exists and puts up a global state on the browser which other JavaScript code can access, your micro frontends can access. What is the first website we already spoke about? Curious about app routing. I think these are the repeated questions. Communicating through window object is preferable. No, there is no preferable. It's the ROI, right? The return on investment. So, for example, if you're just going to do one or two things, it doesn't make sense to import heavy libraries to manage that. Not heavy or external libraries to manage that state for you. In that case, you can use the window object. But if your window object is starting to have hundreds and thousands of keys, maybe it's time to start looking into more robust solutions. Still no standard for micro front end. Yeah, there is no one standard. There are like other different companies who have open sourced their solutions and still in discussion. It's there is no one size fits all solution yet. State management, how can we connect? Like I said, there are these three functions from where you start. We can talk about that more. So is it a good idea to keep micro front end on the same page, like navbar section page, micro front end in different sections? So Utsav asked this question that is it a good idea to keep multiple micro front ends in the same page? So again, like I said, it depends, right? Your what you want to do with the app. So for example, if let's say you have a food delivery app and you want to a marketing team or a recommendation team wants to experiment with the recommendation and the styling and how they show users the content. Maybe they do want a component that shows up in the main ordering page itself. So as a sponsored or a recommended section. Um, and like there's no reason why you cannot do that till the time performance is not taking too much of a hit and your business use case is getting solved. You can do that. Maybe you have a search team who's just working on a very super search UI widget, and their micro front end is used in multiple pages where you're going to do the search. I spoke about the Outlook, for example, where you are when you have the contact details that shows up, right? So good idea, yeah, yes. Like already people are using it. It depends on what you're trying to solve. So again, what work you're going to do and what benefit you're going to get out of it. Any issues when debugging? So debugging is typically the same way JavaScript happens, right? And because micro frontends can be developed and tested in an isolated environment, you're testing. Oh, this is a very good point which Tarun has mentioned. He said any issues you find with debugging when using multiple frameworks. So you're right. When multiple frameworks come into the picture, your testing strategies they change, right? When you had everybody had the React app, you could just use Jest and you can use Puppeteer or whatever and test it the way you want. But when you start having multiple frameworks, you have to like do more work to test your code. And when you use micro front ends, you can write your app, do all the unit tests and do all your integration tests in the micro front end itself. And you can do API testing to make sure the API should work as expected. And when you put your apps together, and of course, you top it off with your end-to-end tests, very few end-to-end tests, which are very important to you in the end. But debugging wise, if you write your tests and locally everything works, generally you don't have to debug too much on your main app because the scope of that app is isolated. And that is the whole thing we were starting off with, where we said that we wanted to keep the scope like very vertical and very specific to our team. So your testing strategy, and now because you're solving different kind of problems with different frameworks, you can evolve your testing strategies to the exact framework which you're using in the micro front end. So people who are doing Angular 2 can have a testing pipeline, a full CI/CD pipeline, which is only specific to Angular 2, and they don't have to worry about React and Angular 4 or Angular 6 or whatever. So that way, it does help. I think Sana, we can just move all these questions up till here to answered.
Which one?
Let, up till Tarun's question, any issues you find with debugging?
You have sorted by uploaded, right?
Yes, I've sorted by uploaded.
Okay, I'll do that.
Okay. Let's see what is
Jelani
next.
has, sorry, not Jelani.
Yeah, let's. Oh, sorry. Let's. Oh, yeah. Let's get Nikhil.
Yeah, Nikhil, I'm just handing the mic to you.
Hi,
Hi, Nikhil. How are you?
Hi. Thank you for organizing, Sana. Ankush, I have one question for you. Basically, it's a so we are discussing about multiple frameworks in a single app, right? So one thing that bugs me is that an app. So typically, an app will have design components. So throughout the app, you have some common designs. Like for buttons, we have common designs, and all those things we have a design language. So this extends to multiple apps as well. For in an organization, for multiple apps, we may have common designs. So when we develop multiple frameworks within an app, so this design libraries will also need to be developed for that in that particular frameworks as well. For example, in React, if we have a common design library, for Angular also we should have that design library to use it in the app as well. So I don't think I don't understand how this multiple framework within an app is feasible if we have a common design language for our application.
Right, like I mentioned to Jelani, right? You create these components in just native language, so HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and when you're importing them into your framework specific environment, you write wrappers around them to use it the way you are. So, for example, like he mentioned about some chatting libraries he wanted to import. So you get the chatting library JavaScript code in your whatever shared repo which is going to be there. And when you import it, let's say to React, you wrap it around the React lifecycle methods, give it the proper props, give it the proper state, whatever you need to like run that component inside your React environment or React library, right? So that way, your design stays the same. So whoever created the chatting library, gave it the right styles, gave it the right colors, it automatically comes to your React environment. And when you use React, you put your own extra buttons for doing the additional things like he mentioned, where he wanted to extend the basic charting library, for example, or your buttons or whatever components you want to use. So once somebody has and whatever design library you create, and like I mentioned, and that is the reason I mentioned that there has to be a specific team who's in charge of that, or a subset of your developers who have to be in charge of that, so that they are sure what are the common libraries. They are the ones maintaining it, and they are the ones accepting PRs for it. When something comes in a generic format, they can make sure that it adheres to the brand value of the organization. And when somebody imports them, they will be tasked with writing the wrapper around it for their developers to use inside their framework. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikhil.
Thank you, Sana.
Yeah. There are two more questions, Ankush.
All right. Difference between frameworks used here. Difference. So frameworks can be anything, right? Anything which is existing out there which you want to use for your code. Maintainability, like I said, once you have your shell app, which is pretty solid, and you can make sure somebody keeps fixing it from time to time. You don't need to if it's something you're using as an official solution. Then in that case, the team which is making that micro front-end app has to be responsible for maintaining that app, because it will exist either in a specific page or a section of your app, and if it breaks, they have to handle the other conditions there, right? So that's there, that's done. Can micro frontends be used in a scenario when migrating between different frameworks? Yes, definitely. So the only problem with that scenario is when you're migrating, you have to do the heavy lifting of setting up the shell app and then slowly migrating piece by piece. So there will be an overhead when you have to move from a legacy code creating into shell-based code, shell-based solution, and then replacing components of that. So that's a good use case. It will take some work too. Micro-frontends are a great solution when you're starting out from scratch. When you're migrating, it's still a good solution because it allows you to migrate slowly and incrementally, right? You don't have to do a big bang release of your entire product. You can just go in and replace certain parts. So obviously there will be a small overhead where you have to set it up the right way and learn all the nuances of how you're going to go about it. Is micro frontend supposed to be analogous to a microservice? I would say yes. That is what the whole intent is. And once that happens, you're able to create that vertical slice, which I spoke about before, where a business feature team is able to own the entire product from backend to front end, where they know what is happening with their databases, when they know what is happening with their application servers, when they know what's happening with the front end apps. From the beginning, I have been hearing the word shell for your front end or your app shell. Can you throw some light on it? Oh, Amal, so the shell or the composer app. So just like how when we have microservices, you still need an API gateway which decides which microservice the request is supposed to go into. You need a very thin shell or a composer app which decides what framework or what solution is rendered in what part of your app, so that it manages it. So it's kind of like the base for running all micro frontends on top of it. So it's usually called a composer, or it's called like a shell app. I'm calling it a shell app because that kind of makes sense to me. You can call it a container app, but I stayed away from the word container because frameworks have their own containers inside of them. So shell or a composer generally tends to make more sense to me. But see, again, like in micro frontends, right now nothing is too conventional, so we can decide what we want to call it. So I
Maybe
think we're done
somebody
with all the
wants
questions.
like some wrapping or stuff, something for shell, a wrapper.
Base shell app or maybe a sample. Yeah, yes. If you go to the SPA website or if you go to the Frint website, they have the basic shells ready for you. I think we've answered all for now.
Okay, I'll just put everything in answered. Okay. Anyone
All right.
else
So
having any question? I think one question has come.
for communication between micro frontends, what would you prefer? It would depend on the use case. Like I said, if it's a very, very small use case, which I'll get away with just one or two lines, I'll probably use window or event bus. I'll not even use event bus. I'll use something like cookies or local storage. If it's a bigger part wait, let me re-answer that. For communication between micro frontends, what would you prefer? I would prefer nothing. I do not want my micro frontends to be talking to each other. That's the best case scenario. And if I can get away with it, nothing better than that. Apart from that, if I have to, then there are all the other solutions that spoke about, the event bus, the post message model, the even calling the APIs through the GraphQL server, or window object or local storage. But generally, I do not want to be talking between multiple frontends. Does deployment configuration complexity increase? Again, that depends. Once you have your shell app, which can be deployed pretty reasonably, and you get a good hang of your independent deployment strategies, it's as complex as any other deployments. And because the team now holds the entire key to going from all the way to setting up their CI/CD to running their tests and doing their CD, they can decide how complex they want it to be. Once, like Janali mentioned, once you deploy it somewhere on Nested or CloudFront or some CDN, automatically it works in your shell app or your Composer app, so you don't have to worry about it. So it might be a little confusing in the beginning, but once your team owns it, you can obviously poke into the code and know what is happening under the hood, and then the complexity should decrease like anything else. It's like the same way, like we don't think React components being any complex, and we can just go ahead and create a new component without worrying about how it works with other components, right? When you get hang of how the things work and how the React renders it, things become less mysterious and less magical. All right, let's see. Any more questions or any more people want to come up and have a discussion and tell me about some of the things they implemented? That would be
Okay,
nice.
Girish has asked me a question in Discord. I'm not sure, like he's not able to ask here. With so much front ends in the browser, does this pattern become too heavy? I'm not sure.
I mentioned that, right? I did say that performance can be a problem if we load too many micro frontend into the same page. But the solution for that is some teams can split their micro frontends based on pages. So you load only one kind of micro frontend per page, and that way performance will no longer be an issue.
I hope Girish got his answer. Sridharan has raised his hand, so I'm just allowing the mic to him.
Sure.
Yeah. Hey, Sridharan.
Hey, hi. Can you hear me?
Hi, Sridharan. Yep.
Yeah, okay, fine. Just a quick question. So, in my company, we are having like couple of products, different application which uses like different technologies. One, our primary product is like the EMR solution that we are offering to the doctors, and we also have a patient side solutions. So, we basically have a EMR for a web platform, which runs on Angular 8. And in the native iPad application is also available. So I'm handling the web part of it. So currently the problem which we have is, in this Corona pandemic, like we have created like couple of new products. Like for example, native version of patient app and the Doctor Lite, which is like the both are built on React Native, and we are giving like these two patient and doctors. Apart from these, like we have a Angular 4 version of a receptionist application. So we have like different products and different platforms and different libraries also. So in the web part, like we are using and design. If we look at the components, like it will be like very heavy, like even for that matter, like the vaccination chart that we have for a pediatrician specialty, it will take like more than 2 months to just create a particular feature. So we have like multiple feature specific for different specialties, and it's very difficult for us to completely migrate one application to some other different tech stack. So currently, the web platform has like different libraries like Angular version 8, React, and Vue.js. And what we want to achieve is we have like different products and the technologies used like React Native, React, Angular 4, Angular 8 with different design libraries. We want to make a single page which can be used in all the platforms. So we are using a couple of pages that is being rendered as iframe, and it's used like in a different platforms. So what would be the best solution to achieve these things? Like we just want, like you can assume that like going forward we'll be migrating everything, say like React to React Native or some single framework, but we want to have a single page that can be used in multiple platforms, so that we don't want to create different components for different basically the platforms.
So sharing code between web and mobile is going to be difficult if you don't use a web view, right? So I
Yeah.
don't know what the demographic of the users are and if WebView is a good choice for them. If it is, then you stick with WebViews because you only need one platform team maintaining the code there. And you can have maybe a handful of iOS and Android developers who just write the main app which loads the WebView for you, right? In terms of what to use, like I mentioned Frint JS. it supports React Native, and it also gives you client-side routing for maintaining your multiple apps and pages, like you mentioned. So maybe that is something you should look into.
Yeah. So currently we are doing this, like we are rendering web view in the native applications, like React Native applications, and we are using iframe in for our web apps. Like we are just like rendering the web pages directly into the native on the web apps. So just like wondering if there are like any better approach to solve this problem.
So in iframes, a lot of times you would have issues with something like authentication or reading your app state data, right? Or your mobile app state data. I'm pretty sure you would have a lot of complaints there. So you need to invest a lot in creating proper bridges between your iOS and Android native environments to be called by your websites, if that makes sense. I think some of your engineers might already be doing that, but investing in bridges early on is very important if you are going to uh, pass data between phone and your web view.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have looked into it. If you have, I would suggest get some of your top Android, iOS engineers and web engineers together to work out this communication bridge pattern and see if they can come up with a solution. I'm pretty sure with them a day or two, they will have some good ideas about it. But it's very important to set up these bridges early on so that later you don't run into problems like you mentioned. Because once you have the bridge set up, you can always pass data between them quite flawlessly.
Okay, got it. Okay.
All right. So let's see if you have any more questions till then. Does
Thanks.
deployment, we've already answered that. Will it be
Which one
different
you
to manage
answered?
micro frontends? Sorry?
Deployment you have answered, right?
Yeah, we haven't answered deployment. Will it be different and complex to manage micro frontends across devices like mobile and tablet? So I don't know if you mean the app or you mean the website in the app, but if it's a website running inside the mobile, it's pretty much the same thing as running on desktop, right? So I don't see why it will be a little complex there. You do have to be careful because mobiles tend to have, or some of the mobiles tend to have less resources or CPU power. So you don't want to go over the performance budgets of those devices and run your experience slower. State management across different micro frontends, like I mentioned, you can use cookies, you can use local storage, you can use a window object, you can use event buses, Redux, and anything that has a global state that can be read by JavaScript can be accessed by any micro frontend anywhere.
Okay, I think we're
Okay.
done with the questions. Guys, anything else? Like, do you wanna ask any question or you wanna come here and share anything? You can raise hand. Like, we are having a bit more time.
Somebody's
Okay.
coming.
Murtaza, Ganesh. Okay, fine. I'm handing the mic to Murtaza. Hi, Murtaza. Hey, Murtaza, are
Let's
you
go
able
for
to hear
Ganesh.
us?
Let's also bring in Ganesh till then.
I'm not sure. I think I'm not able to get two people together.
Oh,
Let me try.
maybe attendees, you can only get one at a time.
Maybe, yeah. I'm handing the mic to Ganesh. There
Hi,
was some problem from Murtaza's side.
hi, Ankush. Can you hear me?
Yeah, Ganesh, I can hear you. How are you?
Great. So basically, I work in a fintech firm, and based on our requirements, we have written our own custom micro frontend framework, and we are using event-based communication between apps. We are not using iframes and everything. It's just one window, one tab, and all the apps are sitting there and coordinating with each other, right? And the communication is not something very heavy. It is very light communication only. My problem is while I'm switching between apps, right? The CSS is not getting kind of applied in the to the DOM in the runtime. So I'm guessing it's because of some kind of a delay in the. I have a lot of set timeouts also being used in the framework. I'm guessing it's because of that. So my question is, would it be possible? Maybe we could get on another call later sometime, and we could, you could take a look at the code, and possibly look at what the problem is.
So let's give it a try. I mean, I'll have to get an understanding of how you set up the
Right.
micro front end.
Yeah.
But
Right.
definitely we can poke around a little bit to see what is happening. So let's
Yes.
connect on Discord.
Right. So I already sent you a LinkedIn request, maybe just to get a mark of this question. Where else can I connect?
Uh,
Discord, Recro Discord.
I'm sorry, I didn't get you.
Ganesh, I'll share a Discord link
Okay, sure.
here, and then you can connect, or even we can connect after this discussion in the social launch area, and I can share it there as well.
Oh, great.
I can explain you better in detail.
Yeah, all right, thanks.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you. Thank you, Ankush. Thanks, Sana.
Thank you, Ganesh. Okay.
Okay.
I think we got some 2 questions. One is from Murtaza. Some issues. Okay. He's facing some issues. Manoj has asked one question: how navigation access micro-frontend is managed?
That's a great question. So navigation. So if you have rolled out your own solution, you control the router. So definitely you can use the location object there and decide it. But if you're using any of those frameworks I mentioned, and even more solutions that will come in future, some of them, like I said, have Boolean attributes that you can use to decide when to load a particular micro frontend. So in that Boolean attribute, you can say stuff like if URL contains slash pay slash something, then load the payment micro front end. If it contains slash order slash something, load the order micro front end. So based on rules, you can decide which apps to load, and the router can be observed by your shell app to decide where to bootstrap and mount and unmount which micro front end apps. Kind of like in React, right? The React router sees the URL and says, okay, based on the switch, I will decide which component I'm going to render. Very similar, but now applied to multiple frameworks. It's interesting how like all solutions end up with making comparisons with the React framework instead of the opposite.
Okay, so I think Manoj also got his answer. Okay, guys. So anyone else is having any other question?
React is mighty.
A lot of people are working on React. Like whoever are here, mostly are working on React.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
easy to get started with that, and it has so much community support.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday. I am extremely sorry we couldn't do it on Saturday, but yeah, we are doing it on Sunday. Thank you so much, and I hope you are maintaining social distancing, though we are not in lockdown, but still, I hope you all are safe. Yeah, because lockdown is not there, right? So mostly people are like going around and all those things, and cases are
Lockdown is still there. People are treating it as though it's not there.
maybe not sure, but I am seeing like a lot of people are going out and all those things. But anyway, please maintain social distancing. Take care of yourself, and see you next time. We are planning to do the next webinar on Jamstack. I will be sharing the link for that in the mail, maybe by Monday, tomorrow. So I'll hope to see you soon there as well. I hope everyone joined there. So I'm just keeping you posted for that. Anyway, you all will get a mail. So I hope you all register for that. Okay, thank you so much, guys. I'll not take much of your time from Sunday. And if you have any more questions, or if you want to discuss anything else, like regarding the topic and regarding anything, you can wait in social launch. Ankush will be coming one by one to everyone if you have any question there, and then you can discuss about it. Yeah, that's it. Thank you so much, guys, for joining in here.
Thank you, guys. Bye. Enjoy Sunday.